This video is for Digital Society students who are enrolled in the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, and it's specifically focusing on paper 2, and might hear a few tips on how to get top marks for paper 2. So in this video I'm going to start with the specimen paper and just talk about a couple of themes and what the examiners are kind of wanting you to do, and then I'll move on to a couple of tips and suggestions, and then I'll also conclude with the mark scheme, how this paper will be marked, especially the question form. Okay, so let's begin with, here is the Digital Society HL and standard level. So just be aware, HL and SL do the exact same paper here. Now you're given four sources, so you're given some information. Here it is here. So you're given a source book. Now this source book will contain, it can contain text, or it can be diagrams. And in this one here, they've got some kind of a diagram. This is source A about shared economies, peer-to-peer sharing economies. Then there's a little paragraph about Airbnb, or a couple of paragraphs, that's source B. Source C, again, is about Airbnb. And then source D is about a thing called Fairbnb. So it looks like an alternative of some sort. Now, most students, when I talk to them about their approach for this, they read the questions first. So they look at the questions and then read the text. So when they're actually reading the text, they're looking for certain things. So if we look at question 1 asks about, with reference to source A, identify 2 ways in which actors other than guests and hosts contribute to the shared economy. Actors other than guests, 2 ways. Okay, so we go back to the source A. Actors other than. Now just be aware, this one's called other actors, but it's actors other than. So one of the major tips is just make sure you read the question, because it's very easy to get a bit muddled up. So it's obviously talking about actors other than hosts and guests. So we're looking at service provided as other actors. So have a look at these, and then the question is basically saying identify 2 ways. So the command term here is identify. Now when you think of identify, I've actually got the command terms up here. Identify is, okay, here it is here. Identify, it says here, it's got 3 doors, and it says providing an answer from several possibilities. So there are several possibilities, so you're identifying 2 possibilities, or two ways in which other actors other than guests and hosts contribute. So it's them contributing to this shared economy. Next question, that's only worth 2 marks. Next question actually focuses on source B. Now it says here with a reference to source B. So in your answer, you need to talk about source B. It says with reference. So make it clear and explicit that you're talking about source B. In source B, it says blah, blah, blah. That makes it really easy for the examiner to give you a mark there. And you also need to talk about other real-world examples you've studied. So this is a shared economy. So you're trying to think about, now what have I studied? Like I've studied Airbnb, or maybe I've studied Uber, which is a similar kind of thing. So you need to clearly identify that you have studied this. Now it also says explain, explains the command term. Explain is, back to my chart. So cause and effect, a detailed account. That's what explain is all about. Why it might be difficult to regulate the shared economy. So just see how much effort and time I've taken to actually read the question. So don't rush into the answer, because I've seen this happen with students before. They read something and then they're off on a tangent and they don't answer the question properly. So read the question, underline key terms. Now it's talking about regulating a shared economy. So basically this is a 4-mark question, and what the examiners are hoping you would talk about is this. The common kind of an issue with technology nowadays is whether it's Airbnb, whether it's Uber, or even if Instagram or Facebook, the technology is moving so fast that the regulators are late in catching up. So problems occur and then the regulators come in. But there's also some complexities of, so just say I'm a user of Instagram in a specific country, does my government, or the country I'm in, govern? Or is it, because there's not like a world governance. So it's very complicated for a specific country to set up some rules about a worldwide kind of piece of technology. So just rack your brain, think about now what kind of technology. We're talking about rapid moving technology, and the regulators having trouble catching up or showing up late and trying to kind of, especially when technology kind of runs away and problems start to occur. It's like, oh no, the genie's out of the bottle. How do we get it back? So this is the kind of a real world example you need to talk about here. Okay, next question, question 3. Now we're doing a comparison between source C and source D. So you can see how the questions guide you to look at source A, look at source B, and now we're looking at C and D together. And you need to reveal about local impacts. Now, impacts and implications is a mega digital society theme. So when you're talking about digital technology, this technology has an impact and implications on different people and different communities. So it's talking about the shared economy. So that one of the ways to look at this is looking at it through some different stakeholders' perspectives. So it would be easy to compare the difference between, now when you look at source C and D, that's the Airbnb's article and the Fairbnb article. So we need to side by side compare those two. And how are we going to compare them? Maybe we can compare them with some things like, what about environmental impacts? Compare the two. That can be a paragraph. Next paragraph can talk about from a hotel or a guest perspective. What is the user perspective of whether it's the actual staying in the Fairbnb or Airbnb, or whether it's the booking process? So you're comparing those two. And then the next paragraph, you can compare about perhaps from the local community's perspective. What's the difference between Fairbnb and Airbnb and the impacts of the local community? So you need to, it's very important with this question, when it says compare, that you compare them side by side. You don't just write a description about source C and then a complete different description of source D. That's not on your way to get top marks. It needs to be comparing the two through different themes. Okay, the fourth question, and this is the one that's worth a lot of marks. The fourth question is worth 12 marks. Now, it talks about with reference to all sources. So all sources, so you need to weave in source A, source B, source C, and source D in your answer, because that's what it says straight up. Next part, and your own knowledge. Now, you need to provide evidence that you've done some kind of research and that you identify that in your answer. Now, the key command term here is discuss. Now, if I look at my chart here, discuss. I don't have discuss because this is an MYP command term. Now, on my, I'm going to get to discuss and all the command terms a bit later, so I'll talk about that a bit later. But you need to discuss. Now, what are you discussing? Whether the sharing economy represents change, that is an evolution or transformation. Now, the examiners here want to know that you have studied change, because that's one of the main themes, and you also understand the difference between an evolution and transformation. So super, super important to read the question, underline the key words, and think, now what is the examiner wanting to look at here? I'm writing for that examiner. That's my specific target audience. What do they want to hear? And if you can start to think a bit like an examiner and provide that answer for them, you're going to boost your marks. It's not just writing the answer. It's like, now what does the examiner actually want? What will the examiner give me marks for? That's the kind of thinking that you need to be, the frame of mind when you're writing exam papers. Okay, so that's the specimen paper that's been given to all IB teachers. Now, some of my tips I've put on this website here I created, ibdigitalsociety.com. If you're in the home section, there's blog posts. Now, I've just created a blog post 20 minutes ago. It only takes 3 minutes to read. Now, just be aware. I just noticed something. This is I created this with a Wix site. You can actually sign up. You can become a member. No cost, of course. If you sign up, what happens? I've just realised is when I publish a blog post, you get a message in your inbox. So if you're a digital society student and you want to have a few little tips and tricks and you want to see all the latest stuff that I'm sending, I'd encourage you to sign up. And already 4 people have viewed it. It's, that's possibly why they've viewed it, because they might have got an email that was generated by Wix. Anyway, this post here is all about exam paper 2, some tips. So this exam paper is basically trying to what it was trying to get you to do is demonstrate that you're a creative and critical thinker, and you need to respond directly to the command term and that question. That's why when I was reading those questions, I was trying to highlight how important it is to read those questions. Now, if you scroll down to the very bottom of this, I've got all the command terms here. So just want to be it's really important that you identify the command term and then your answer is matching, because the examiners are going to be looking for, did they discuss? Now, what is the definition of discuss? Did they identify? What's that definition of identify? So super important, get used to these. Okay, some top tips. So first of all, demonstrate independent, creative, and critical thinking. Some students fall into the trap. They think this is like a reading comprehension. So they read source A and they think, oh, the answer must be in there. It's not like that. It's not English comprehension. It is, okay, here's the source. It's supposed to stimulate some ideas. And once you've stimulated the ideas and you're recalling different kind of things that you've read in research and things you've done in class, and then be able to synthesize that and put it in your answer. So that's the aim of paper 2. Now, you need to also demonstrate accurate and relevant knowledge. So I know some students think, oh, I can just bluff my way through. If you're not demonstrating that you actually have some accurate knowledge, you're not going to get good marks. So you need to demonstrate you've got accurate and relevant knowledge. Now, you need to support. So when you make a point, you need to support it. Now, you can support it by sort of talking about some secondary research that you've done, or something you've read, or some primary research as well. Maybe you have had some experience as an Airbnb customer in that specimen paper example. This is primary research. This is actually important because you've had because you've had real life experience yourself. You can talk about this real life experience. So that is how you can support your answer. So you make your point and then you support it with research or a real life example. Okay, command terms. I've already kind of talked about those, so I won't go into any more detail there. Now, next point here, there's a part C to the exam. And now because of time constraints, this was the 6-mark question. Part C, you don't have to have a fully polished, beautiful written response here. You can just get straight to the point. You need that because you need time for the last question. That's question 4. So this one here, just get straight to the point. Bullet points, subheadings and bullet points is actually an effective way to organize your thoughts here and present some ideas. So just think about efficiency. How can I get that answer out quite swiftly? Make the point, demonstrate I've done research, demonstrate it's accurate, demonstrate my critical thinking without taking up a ton of exam time. So that's what you need to keep in mind. You can even practice this. Give yourself like a time limit to answer part C and try and just get to the point. Now, question 4. So my analysis is basically that they're looking for one of the major themes. So the major theme that they talked about was change, transformation, and evolution. So look for this major theme. Now, the major themes come from, if you go up here, you've got your concepts and your contexts. Oh, it's the first one I've clicked on, change, and you can see here it's all about change. Where does it say something about evolution? Oh, it's the first one. So you can see the first one. This is the first one I looked at. Change is the evolution and transformation, blah, 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 blah. So that obviously is the theme that the examiners want you to demonstrate that you have done research and you know that change, you understand that change theme. So best way to prepare for the exams, go to your context and do yourself some research about all the different, there's 7 of them, do your own research so you understand what they are. And then the next step is connected to some real world examples that you could call upon. In a future video, I'll talk about how the best way to prepare for that is. So contexts and concepts, you need to have a good knowledge, because one of those themes will probably pop up in question 4. Okay, next one here, bullet point, impacts and implications of digital technology on people and communities, a major theme. So you need to understand what digital technology, so when you think about the paper 2, they're talking about Airbnb. So you're thinking about now, what's the technology involved in Airbnb? So you need to you understand the digital technology. That's the first part. Second part, you now need to start thinking about how does this digital technology impact different stakeholders, different communities, and different people? What are some of the positive impacts? What are some of the negative impacts? So that's the major theme of this whole course. So if you can embrace that kind of theme in your answers, I think the examiners will be impressed. Last bullet point, we've already talked about this, this is like a synthesis of the mark scheme. This is for the question 4, 12-mark question. You need some kind of evaluation. You're demonstrating that you can evaluate information. So you've got 4 sources and you've done your own research. How do you evaluate it all? So you're kind of taking a step back and evaluating all this information and synthesizing this information as well. So as I mentioned earlier, this exam paper here is to demonstrate your critical and creative thinking. That you need to demonstrate that you're a good thinker in this exam paper if you want to do well. And whatever your thinking is, it needs to be supported with relevant and accurate knowledge. And it needs to be well structured as well. So with the part C, subheadings and bullet points are a really good way, or you can even do like a table if you need to. But with your 12-mark question, that's question 4, introduction, body, conclusion as well. And that's what you'll need to do for top marks for question 4. Okay, here's the mark scheme this is for question 4, and it's worth 12 marks. So we've already talked about these things, in-depth knowledge, you need to answer the question, really important, you need to respond and answer the question. Every aspect of that question needs to be addressed. Relevant and accurate knowledge. Now, adding insight, this is an interesting one. Now, when I was looking at supervising some extended essays, I used this phrase called, intellectual initiative. I didn't know what it meant, so I looked it up, and it's a similar kind of thing, adding insight to your response. What uniqueness, is there something new you could offer? So when an examiner, how I interpret this, sometimes when I'm looking at exam papers, sometimes students have some information, I think, wow, that's really interesting. And sometimes I look at it, I think, I've never heard of this. And then I actually go and look it up. Now, this is something that adds insight to a response. So if you can actually have some quality information that you found that the examiner thinks, oh, that's very interesting, you're on track for top marks. Evidence, integration and evidence from sources, well structured and effectively organized. So they're my top tips for exam paper 2, and I wish you well when you're sitting your exams.